Good morning, y'all. I need you to stop what you're doing right now and give me the next few minutes because what I am about to walk you through is not a routine severe weather forecast. It is not a keep an eye on things this weekend situation. It is not a there might be some storms Tuesday discussion. What I am tracking right now, what the models have been screaming at us for the past 72 hours with an extraordinary level of consistency and agreement, is a storm system that has the potential to go down as one of the most significant severe weather and flooding events this region has seen in years, possibly in a generation, depending on how the most aggressive model solutions verify. I do not use the word historic lightly. I never have. In this community, in this channel, that word means something specific. It means the atmosphere is coming together in a way that transcends the normal severe weather conversation. It means the ingredients are not just present, they are stacking. And when the ingredients stack the way they are stacking right now, the result is not just bad storms. The result is a multi-day, multi-hazard, multi-state event that rewrites the risk landscape for millions of people at once. That is what is coming. And I want to make sure every single person in the path of this system understands not just that it is coming, but exactly what it means, exactly why it is different, and exactly what you need to do right now before it arrives. Let me start by explaining what actually makes a storm historic, because I think it is important to understand this before we get into the specifics of what the models are showing. Because there is a tendency in severe weather coverage to use dramatic language as a substitute for real analysis, and I refuse to do that. When I call this storm historic, I'm pointing to something measurable, something specific. The atmosphere produces genuinely historic severe weather events when multiple ingredients achieve extreme values simultaneously. Not just one ingredient running above average, but several ingredients all running into the high end of their respective climatological ranges at the same time and in the same place. Think of it as a recipe where not only do you have all the ingredients, but every single one of them is at maximum concentration. What the models are showing for this event is precisely that scenario. Atmospheric instability, the fuel for thunderstorm development, is forecast to reach values in the 3,500 to 4,000 joule per kilogram range across the primary corridor of concern. To put that in context for you, 2,000 joules is a big, severe weather day. 2,500 is a significant event. 3,500 to 4,000 joules is the kind of instability that produces violent, long-track tornadoes, softball-sized hail, and destructive straight-line winds all at the same time from the same storm complex. And that instability is not the only ingredient running into the extreme range. The wind shear, the change in wind speed and direction with height that allows thunderstorms to rotate and organize, is forecast to be exceptional as well. The SPC's own modeling output is showing bulk shear values that rival some of the most prolific severe weather outbreaks on record. Instability and shear together, both running into extreme territory in the same place at the same time. That is the combination that produces historic events. And that combination is coming together right now. The geographic corridor where this storm sequence is going to deliver its highest impact runs from the southern plains northeastward through the Tennessee Valley and into the Ohio Valley, a swath that encompasses some of the most tornado-vulnerable geography in the United States. Central Oklahoma, northwestern Arkansas, the Missouri Bootheel, western Tennessee, western Kentucky, into southern Indiana and southwestern Ohio as the system accelerates and matures over the 48 hours after initial initiation. The reason this corridor is particularly concerning is not just the atmospheric setup. It is the combination of the atmospheric setup with the specific population and infrastructure characteristics of the region. This is a part of the country where a significant percentage of the housing stock is mobile or manufactured, housing that has essentially no tornado protection. It is a part of the country where large segments of the population are rural, with long distances between residences and the nearest emergency medical services. It is a part of the country where the power grid infrastructure runs above ground on wooden poles for hundreds of miles, making it extraordinarily vulnerable to the kind of widespread wind damage that this storm system is capable of producing. And it is, in many areas, a part of the country where the population has become somewhat desensitized to severe weather threats, because severe weather happens every spring, and most severe weather events do not reach the threshold that this one has the potential to reach. Desensitization is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a community before a major storm. Please, do not let familiarity with severe weather convince you that this event is routine. It is not. Now I want to talk about the tornado threat from this system in real, specific terms, because I think the tornado conversation is where the preparation instinct kicks in strongest for most people, and I want to make sure the preparation is proportional to the actual risk. The initiation sequence that the models are advertising begins in the early afternoon hours of the primary event day across eastern Oklahoma and into southeastern Kansas. As the dry line sharpens and surface temperatures rocket into the upper 70s and lower 80s ahead of the advancing upper-level trough. What fires in those early afternoon hours is not a squall line. It is not a disorganized cluster. It is discrete supercell thunderstorms, the most efficient tornado-producing storm mode in the atmosphere, forming in an environment where the hodograph shape, the distribution of wind shear through the lowest 3 kilometers of the atmosphere, is nearly optimal for tornadic supercell development. When the SPC issues a particularly dangerous situation, watch for a tornado outbreak, which based on the current model trends is a real possibility for this event, they are specifically flagging situations where the atmospheric environment supports not just tornadoes, but significant tornadoes. EF2, EF3, EF4 rated events, long track events, tornadoes that stay on the ground for miles rather than minutes. I'm not telling you to panic. I'm telling you to prepare with the understanding that the tornado threat from this system during the afternoon and evening initiation window is in the upper tier of what the atmosphere is capable of producing. Your shelter plan needs to be solid. It needs to be practiced. It needs to account for every member of your household, including pets. And it needs to be executable in under 2 minutes, because that is sometimes all the warning time you get. There is a specific element of this storm's timeline that I want to address directly, because it is the element that history has shown kills people who were otherwise well prepared for the daytime portion of an outbreak. The system does not end at sunset. The afternoon supercell phase consolidates into a squall line during the evening hours, and that squall line pushes through the most populated portions of the affected corridor: Memphis, Nashville, Louisville, Cincinnati, during the overnight hours, between midnight and 6 in the morning local time, when people are asleep, when parents are not watching weather radar. When y'all call is the difference between a family that makes it to their shelter in time and a family that does not. QLCS tornadoes, the tornadoes that are embedded within quasi-linear convective systems, within squall lines, are meteorologically different from supercell tornadoes in a critical way. They develop faster. The radar signature is less obvious to the untrained eye. The lead time on warnings is shorter, and they arrive when the population most at risk, sleeping households in mobile homes, elderly residents who cannot move quickly even, when they are awake, has the lowest probability of receiving and acting on a warning through conventional notification channels. A push notification is not enough for 3 in the morning. A weather radio alarm going off in another room is not enough for 3 in the morning. Y'all calls your phone. It rings through Do Not Disturb. It rings through sleep mode. It rings through every setting on every phone that is designed to keep things quiet while you sleep, because the GPS coordinates in your profile are covered by an active tornado warning. And that means the notification is not a suggestion. It is an emergency. $14.95 for a full year. The link is in the description of this video. Please do not go to sleep the night before the system arrives without having y'all call active on every phone in your household. I want to spend real time on the flash flood threat from this event because I think it is the hazard that has the greatest potential to catch the most people off guard. And because the mechanism that makes the flooding so dangerous from this particular system is something that does not always get explained clearly. This is not a one-day rain event. This storm system arrives as the third and most powerful in a sequence of 3 disturbances that have been moving through the region across the preceding week. The first disturbance brought a ½ inch to 1 inch across portions of the affected corridor. The second brought 1 inch to 2 inches in many locations. By the time the main event arrives, the soil moisture across the primary impact area is going to be at or near saturation across a very wide geographic footprint. In hydrology, we talk about antecedent soil moisture, the moisture that is already in the ground before a new rain event begins, as one of the most critical variables in determining runoff potential. When antecedent soil moisture is high and a major rain producer arrives, you do not need extreme rainfall rates to produce extreme flooding. The ground simply cannot absorb the water. It runs off immediately, into creeks that are already running above normal, into rivers that are already approaching their banks, into storm drain systems in urban areas that were already stressed by the previous week's rainfall. The main event is forecast to produce 2 to 4 inches of rainfall across the broad impact area, with locally higher amounts of 4 to 6 inches, and in some of the most intense convective cores, localized totals of 6 to 8 inches are possible, in a saturated soil environment. The result is a flash flood threat that does not require a 6-inch storm to be life-threatening. Even the lower-end totals, 2 to 3 inches on already saturated ground, can produce flash flooding conditions that fill drainage channels in minutes and put roads underwater with virtually no warning. The road flooding piece of this is where I want to focus your attention specifically, because turnaround don't drown fatalities happen in a specific, predictable pattern that we see repeated after every major flood-producing severe weather event in this country. The victim is almost never someone who drove into a raging river. The victim is almost always someone who drove into water on a road that did not look dangerous, that looked like 6 inches of standing water on a low-lying section of highway that the driver assumed they could navigate. And here is the truth about 6 inches of water on a road. It is not 6 inches of static water. It is 6 inches of flowing water in many cases, with the hydraulic force of the entire upstream drainage moving through that section of road. 2 feet of moving water will float and carry away the majority of passenger vehicles. Full stop. I do not care how big your truck is. I do not care how high your clearance is. Moving water at 2 feet depth will take your vehicle, and there is nothing you can do about it once it has you. The road that was clear when you drove to work in the morning may have 8 inches of moving water across it by the time you try to drive home in the evening. That is the timeline this event can produce. Please know your alternate routes now. Please know which roads in your area are flood prone before you need that information. And please, every time you encounter water across a road during this event, any amount, any depth, turn around. There is no appointment, no errand, no destination that is worth your life. The hail threat from the afternoon supercell phase of this event is going to cause property damage at a scale that takes months for affected communities to work through. And I want to make sure the people in the path of the highest impact storm cores understand what that means practically before it happens. The atmospheric environment supporting this outbreak, extreme instability, cold upper-level temperatures driven by the ejecting trough, steep mid-level lapse rates, is the same environment that produces the largest hail. The models are advertising updraft intensities within the strongest supercells that support hailstones in the baseball to softball range, 2 3/4 to 4 inches in diameter. At terminal velocity, a hailstone that size is not precipitation. It is a projectile. Vehicles left outdoors in the path of the highest intensity storm cores will not be dented. They will be totaled. Windshields will not be cracked. They will be caved in. Roofs that were in marginal condition before the storm will require complete replacement afterward. And the cascading community impact of that kind of widespread hail damage is not a one-week story. When a major hail event sweeps through a populated corridor, every roofing contractor within 200 miles is booked out for months. Insurance adjusters are working 7 days a week across multiple counties trying to document claims. Blue tarps go on roofs while families wait for materials, for labor, for inspections, for approvals. Your house lives under a tarp for the winter. Your vehicle is totaled and you are navigating an insurance claim while also trying to live your life. These are the downstream consequences that the meteorological summary of a severe weather outbreak rarely captures. And they are real, and they are coming for the communities in the path of the strongest storm cores if those cores perform as the models are advertising. Please get your vehicles under cover before Tuesday afternoon. A neighbor's garage, a covered parking structure, a carport. Even partial protection is better than no protection. Act now while you still have time. I want to close this forecast with something I say not as a content strategy or closing line formula, but because I mean it deeply after years of covering severe weather events and watching the gap between preparation and outcome play out in real communities. The difference between the people who experience a historic outbreak as a frightening but survivable event and the people who do not make it through is almost never a matter of the storm being more severe than forecast. It is almost always a matter of preparation. Specifically, the preparation that happened in the 24 to 48 hours before the event when there was still time to act. You are in that window right now. You have time to identify or reinforce your shelter. You have time to charge every device in your household. You have time to talk to your elderly neighbors about their plan. You have time to move your vehicles. You have time to check on the flood-prone roads between your home and the places you need to reach. You have time to set up y'all call. Every one of those actions takes minutes. Every one of them matters. Do not wait until the tornado sirens are going off to discover that your shelter is not adequate, or that your phone is not charged, or that the road you need to evacuate on is already underwater. Do those things now. I am going to be live the moment the first supercells initiate, and I am staying live through the entire event, through the squall line, through the overnight window, through every tornado warning until the last one expires. Subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, and I will see you all in the live stream. I love every single one of you. Stay safe out there.